when you're underprepared for this question, you are more likely to say something that you wish you never mentioned, and that can open up a whole can of worms that you cannot put the lid on. Hello Dr. Humans, welcome back to the channel and to part 2 of our interview structure lessons. So last week we covered the CAP structure, clinical, academic, personal structure, which is great for answering questions like tell us about yourself, why this hospital, why this specialty, or why are you the best person for the job. But here I wanted to tackle the structure we use for example or situational questions, and in particular give you some ideas for how to answer questions around your weaknesses or mistakes that you have made. And this second structure is likely to be familiar to you. It's the STAR method. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. And this is great for situational questions where you want to give an example and back up what you're saying. And at a minimum, before your interview, I would make sure that you brainstorm out some examples using the STAR method of leadership, teamwork, communication skills, conflict resolution, a difficult clinical scenario, a challenge that you overcame. But I also want you to brainstorm a weakness and a mistake that you have made, because those are the hardest to speak about and they can trip us up big time if we haven't thought them through beforehand. So the important thing anytime you use the STAR method is really to portray yourself in a positive light and provide a happy ending to every story. So always remember that when you describe a situation, your role in the situation and the actions you took, never forget the end piece, which is the result. What happened because of your fabulousness, right? What made you the hero of this story? And when we apply this to those negative things like what's your biggest weakness, this is so important. It could not be more important, because anytime we're talking about a negative, we want to flip it into a positive. So if you're asked, what's your biggest weakness? I want you to find an example of something that you have overcome. In the past, I've used the example of taking a great deal of ownership in my work and finding it difficult to delegate things, which meant that I stayed late at work and had trouble making time to study for my exams, and so on. And I reflected on this and I came up with some strategies to overcome this, and then you can talk about what those strategies were, what you did, who you worked with on the team, how you improved things for yourself. And then you finish off with the overall result of this, which was, now I'm able to leave work on time and actually see delegation as a strength. Now, whether that is 100% how you feel or not about your weakness is completely irrelevant. In real life, we're going for progress over perfection, but in the interview, you want to talk about how you turned things around for the better, okay? And similarly, if you're asked to talk about a mistake that you made, I want you to find an example of a mistake where you come out looking very capable and very competent as a Dr. Human. So we're not looking for a train wreck example here. We are looking for something that we can spin into a positive experience. And let me tell you, when you're underprepared for this question, you are more likely to say something that you wish you never mentioned, and that can open up a whole can of worms that you cannot put the lid on. And even though mistakes in medicine are usually tangled with systemic problems, and even though we're supposed to live in a non-blame culture, our interviewers are not going to be on that wavelength when they are interviewing you, right? They're going to be judging you because by the very nature of the interview process, we are being judged, okay? So an example of a mistake that I made that had a positive outcome was when I went to see a patient in the emergency department in a particular cubicle. The patient was a man with hypertension, and that's what I was looking for. And I went into the cubicle and indeed saw a man with hypertension and proceeded with my admission, except this wee man was not the right wee man. And actually, he was there to see the urologist for a blocked nephrostomy or something completely different. But By the time I realised that this was not the patient I was supposed to be admitting, I had done a full neuro exam and I'd picked up some unilateral cerebellar signs that I could not ignore, right? So then I had to arrange for a brain scan and further follow-up for this wee man that I was never meant to see in the first place. Then I still had to go and do the actual admission that I was supposed to do. So in this scenario, I can talk about how I should have checked the patient's identity before I started admitting them and the impact this had on the other patient who was waiting to be admitted, the impact it had on me definitely not leaving work on time that day, and how I've changed my practice accordingly to always check the wristband of every patient I see in the emergency department. But this example also helps me to shine because it demonstrates my clinical skills in being able to pick up neurological signs, right? So I want you to brainstorm a mistake that you've made where there was a positive outcome for your growth and development, but also in which there was no harm to a patient. Maybe you also saw the wrong patient like I did. Maybe you wrote a note in the wrong file, or maybe you mislabeled a routine blood test and the lab wouldn't process it and that caused delays in something. Or maybe one day you had a bunch of tasks written down on a piece of paper that you subsequently lost and you had to go in search of the piece of paper and that wasted time, and you eventually found this and completed all the tasks on the list, but since then have developed a better way to manage your tasks moving forward, and now you have this phenomenal system for task management. Or maybe now you just wear outfits with lots of pockets without fail so you never lose your list, something like that. So we want to take benign examples and spin them into gold, spin them into ways that we've overcome that situation, any blind spots we have, and how it's made us better than ever. Okay, so that was how to talk about weaknesses and mistakes in your interview using the STAR method. So now over to you. I want you to go forth and brainstorm those things out, find examples that work for you, and ultimately help you to shine. Practice speaking to yourself in the mirror, and of course, if you do have an upcoming job application and you would like your cover letter to pop and sparkle, then I would love you to join me for Rock Your Cover Letter, my on-demand workshop, where we will write your cover letter paragraph by paragraph. I will show you how to spin the very ordinary into absolute gold, and I will even show you my very own real-life cover letter that helped me get into advanced training back in the day. The workshop is available to purchase by itself, or it's included within the deluxe membership. It's high yield indeed, and I hope to see you there. And otherwise, stay tuned here on YouTube, where we will be diving into some juicy renal and immunology topics coming at you from next week onwards. I'll see you there. Bye.